Welcome to NEK-TV Rocks. My guest today is Heidi Eichenberger. You wear several hats, one of which is you run a hearing center in Newport and probably other places. But here today, you're here as the CEO of HOSIV.
Housing Our
I got it right?
Seniors of
Cool.
Vermont, in Vermont.
Housing.
Our Seniors in Vermont, HOSIV.
So you are providing or hoping to be providing housing for seniors.
Yes.
Certainly something we need. I remember you coming to the council a couple of years ago and doing a presentation about a project that was going to start. Where is it? What's happening?
Well, we tried to do it the simple way initially, and the way this started was I got volunteered to be part of this committee, and the committee was to get some kind of a senior housing together. And at the time, everybody was gung-ho, but I had noticed in the past that talk is cheap. People say, yeah, and then they don't do anything. And after we had gone through countless meetings, I had gone to the bank, and they said, oh, no problem. There's a lot of people that'll be behind you, and let's just get her done. And so we did that, and we took it. We found property, and that's what we wanted to do. But as everything else, it's always a question of money. So we were told about this grant, that grant, every other grant, and grants, well, again, there's theory and practice. People feel generous, but then ultimately nothing happens. So there's always some good and some bad to everything. And then with COVID, everything kind of stood still. But it has permitted us to change things around. So right now, a lot of people don't realize how desperate the need for housing seniors is. We are a very benevolent group, and we like to help people, but it's almost like seniors are quiet, and
We're invisible.
yes, that would be a better term. And because of the other hat that I wear, I do home visits, and it's hard to imagine that I will go into a place where they have dirt floors, a senior living by himself, relatively cold, dirt floors. You know, seniors have paid taxes most of their lives, you know, and they've a lot of them have been very productive, and unlike in Indian tribes and everything else, we don't respect our elders. We just want them to disappear.
Right.
And we are all aging. We need to do something about it. We desperately need to do something about it. So since COVID started, we had decided to rearrange things a little bit. So what we want to do first is build a heart. The heart is the building, the assisted living building that will have all the services. So the dining room and the doctor's office or nursing offices where everybody is, the recreation areas, and on top of that, on the second, third, and fourth floor, will be rooms that can be used for assisted living, convalescence, and everything else. And then after that, and within that, because of COVID, we're going to build two what I call safe rooms. There's been, the biggest travesty is how we have treated our seniors during COVID. And the big problem is I think people in jails and prisons have been treated better than seniors in nursing homes. They were totally isolated for their own protection. But if I take the example of my own parents, they would have rather died and visited the kids than just be isolated. So we will be building two rooms, one that'll be glassed in. So even COVID being more or less over, or hopefully will be.
No, it's not.
I know, but there'll be other things,
Yes,
flu,
exactly.
virus, whatever. So if you want to visit your loved ones, and let's say they have a cold or you do, if it's all glassed in and there's speakers, at least they could see the people. They're right beside each other. They could kiss the glass if they need. We need a lot of Windex, but we can do that. The other thing is we'll have a room that will have a big screen TV for FaceTime and Messenger, because again, in the nursing home where my parents were, the staff didn't know how to use it, and a little screen
It's
just doesn't.
useless. It's useless.
Yeah, they don't feel bonding or anything.
No.
So there'll be a lot of things like that, like negative pressure in the corridors to minimize any kind of problems. We will do different things. So for that reason, it taking longer is probably not a bad thing. But what we need now, and the other, sorry, I'm rambling here, but which I do.
I'll focus you in a minute.
Okay. The other thing is we found out it's hard to imagine how non-affordable it is for seniors to go into any kind of senior housing.
It's totally unaffordable.
You know, I look in Vermont, in some places $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month. If you're a teacher, a nurse, or anything, you can't even think about doing it. It's out of most people's realm. So that being the case, if we start with the heart, and then we build right beside it, we have apartments, and the apartments will be privy to everything else that is relatively free or very low cost. So instead of paying the $5,000, you're looking more at between $1,000 and $2,000. You can have a one meal plan, because a lot of people, they eat, one good meal a day, and if it were up to me, I'd eat Cheerios the rest of the day. But so, and they could socialize with people.
Right.
So it's nonprofit. We need donations. We need people to say, hey, we'd like to donate to this cause.
Okay, let's back this up. So you have a piece of land, which is on Lakemont, right?
Yes.
Right by a healthcare facility.
The hospital.
Yeah, exactly. That's allegedly a healthcare facility.
So it seems.
So if people want that, and there's also a gym nearby, a physical therapy center.
The physical therapy place. We have behind it, or right across the street, is the bicycle path. We would eventually make a pathway and a gazebo right on the lake.
Right.
So you have people who need more help and some people who need less help. OC Transpo will be coming, so you Walmartians can go up to Walmart or wherever you need to go.
Yeah. So you have the land already. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. What will it take for step one?
Well, I think what I've done now is I've reduced the size, and technically we would have most everything we need for conventional financing. To make sure that happens, we need, I think we need the full plans done, and we need Act 250 done. And with that, we would have, I think, pretty much everything we need. So we would need Act 250 is $150,000, and full plans you're looking at another $300,000. So prices.
Act 250, you have to pay $150,000. Wow.
I know it's quite the deterrent. And the irony is, if we were just more into the downtown core, it's free.
Yes, because you'd be in the designated downtown area.
Yeah, I wish they could designate the hospital in that little realm into it.
Wow, that is insane.
Yes, it is. It doesn't seem fair because you're basically, saying you got to pay more and you got to pay less.
Right.
So.
And Act 250. I don't understand where the money goes. I mean, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. I know where the money goes. It goes to support whatever state department is.
Well, in our case, when you look at what has to be done, so they go, the same happened in Canada, and we had to pay $500,000 there. What it is you go to, they give the plans to the fire department, the police department, all this, so that they could say, okay, and then they pass it around to the neighbors. So we don't really have any neighbors because the neighboring properties are mine,
right,
or HOSIVs. And there's only one piece, and that's the physical
like
therapy
industry anyway.
Yes, it is. Well, we've rezoned it to a more high density institutional whatever, which is cleaner than light industrial. So that's what's happening. I'm a little bit saddened. I don't feel that certain entities are providing as much support as they could, and that would be the city and would be the hospital. And I can understand it a little bit because Newport has a bit of a reputation of wanting to do something and it falls apart.
Right.
So I think a lot of them are just looking, they want something to get started.
Sure.
So even though it's tough, that's what we need to do.
So how many seniors do you think your organization would be able to help in Newport?
140.
Wow.
It's large, but the whole idea of large is that it reduces the cost of things. You won't be a number. There's always a quota of how many seniors to some kind of a health care person. And, it's not for everyone. The government talks a lot about aging in place and other people. Everything, it would be nice if everybody has certain choices, but there's certain realities in Vermont.
Right.
And the realities are when you have a VNA nurse that has to go an hour out to visit this person twice a day, it's costing the system so much
Right.
more. And the other thing is whether you want to live alone or you live with a family. If you're living alone, the isolation and the lack of mental stimulation
Right.
is dangerous.
Yes.
And if you're living with a family, a lot of times you become a babysitter that, you should be able to stimulate your brain. That's important.
Yeah. Clearly as somebody who is, quote, aging herself.
No.
You'd never guess it.
No.
I know. Exactly. And so are you.
49 are you?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And so are you,
Yeah.
perpetually. We know that as we age, we're going to be living in houses that are way too big for us, are going to be really challenging for us to maintain, if we can even get people to help us maintain them, because it's really hard to get services or to pay for services. So we're occupying houses that could be occupied by a family, and there's a shortage of general housing. It's not just senior housing, but there's nowhere for us to be.
And I think you said this in one of our conversations before, is that if we ultimately are going to be housing 140 people, maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less, many of these seniors have houses. Because of
Right.
house prices being so high, having, a more mature house would make it easier for other residents moving into Vermont, Newport for that matter. So, it's just a win-win for everybody. I think the two hardest things for seniors is just imagine leaving your home. It would be a nightmare. We have so much stuff. We accumulate years and years of stuff, and to give it away, and a lot of us think, oh, well, we want to give it to our kids.
They don't want
They don't want it. They don't want our stuff.
They don't
so
want it.
that is one thing. And the other thing is respect. I find, I still remember when people would talk like this, oh, hello, Mrs. Jones, how are you? You're not a kid.
Right.
You want to be treated respectfully. And yeah, you might not want to have blueberries with your oatmeal in the morning. And it would be nice to try to be flexible. I mean, you can't always, but
Right.
respect the person's being. Don't force them to do things if they don't want to.
Right.
And I think that is a little bit of a fear too in these places.
Yes. Well, it's just certainly in the institutional part, but it sounds as though what you're planning for are a lot of small apartments that are independent living, as independent as somebody wants to be. Is that accurate?
It is, and again, in Vermont, we have a certain type of people, and you can bet anything that we will have gardens.
Right.
We need them, and we will have a pet policy. And the pet policy is, and I've always put this in a joking way, if you can't see, smell, or hear them, you can keep them. And what that simply means is that you have to pick up after your pet.
That's fair.
And I could not live anywhere where I wouldn't be allowed my Abby.
Right.
So, again, it comes down to respect. The big hard rule is you can't go down to the dining room naked. That's always been a big rule of mine.
Really, that's awfully picky.
Well, I know, but it's so scary to see how our bodies can sag after a while, and I don't want to see that. But those are the two big things, and you know, it's just, as I said, it's respect, and it goes both ways. But you know, we looked at Vermont in general. There's some in Rutland and Burlington and St. Albans, but this neck of the woods, there's really not much out there.
We have a very small percentage of senior housing, but we're the largest percentage of people living here at this point.
Exactly.
And that's really going to be challenging in the next 10 years.
Well, you know, even right now, if say we're lucky enough to get some of these donations and we start, there's always hurdles throughout the times. And one of them, the cost right now of building is pretty high. But again, we're creative. We can get SIP panels from Canada, these kind of things. And we will be as we will check the budgets as much as we can, but we can't reduce on the quality of the product.
Absolutely.
The other problem is staff. So one of the things, and I was talking to my doctor just last week or 2 weeks ago, and you know, nurses are hard to find, and most of the nurses still are pink collar. And a lot of the nurses have problems with daycare and everything. So we would have a separate entity for daycare, and it would be free for these nurses. So we could ensure that we would have, and when I say nurses, is anybody looking after the seniors.
You're talking about any staff, basically.
Yes, yeah.
That would be a big draw.
I would think it would be. And we had, when I worked for the airlines, we had a slam book, what we called. And because a lot of, again, dealing mainly with pink collar, you know, you have to be flexible. And so you would have, like, let's say you were there and you would have one of the plum times, which would be 7 to 2. But let's say little Gerta is sick. So what you do is you look at the slam book and you say wanting to trade, and each one signs.
Right.
So with the responsibility of the signing, you don't have to ask me permission as long
you
as
just trade. Right?
Yes, and it makes life easier. Life is short, so you know you've got to be interactive, and it's not like the old days where you know you had to be scared of your boss. I mean, it's more the opposite. We have to be scared of our employees.
Right. One of the things that there was a lot of energy put into up here was the idea of a community center. We have absolutely nothing up here that is a gathering place for people, not just seniors. And it was very hard to get any kind of support from those who I think would prefer that we didn't gather. Would your facility have something similar in mind?
You know, that's an interesting idea. I'll tell you something else. It kind of gets me a little bit on a tangent. You know how there's low-cost housing here, but it's all mixed, a melting pot, and you have young and old.
Yeah, which personally I like.
You personally like, but there's a bit of a problem to that. So I get a lot of feedback. And a lot of the seniors who are in these mixed areas are scared. They're scared for their lives, and they're scared. And it's, you know, it takes one, what is it, Brian says, one shit that takes away 10 attaboys. But that's just it. You have family dynamics with younger kids, people yelling, there's some drugs in it, and you know, as you get older, I guess you're more vulnerable and you're scared. What does that mean for a community center? So again, community centers, I know in Europe, what they did is they did have a bit of an age segregation because teenagers don't want to get old people cooties and so on. The thing that I worry about, and I think a community center in our place would be a very good idea, but again, it's more of a membership so that we can, you know, control the people we have.
Yeah.
But, you know, interaction. And I think like even last years of high school, you know, kids have to do volunteer work, so we always had volunteer programs. But yeah, we'd have activities and people from the outside definitely
could come in. I
yes.
mean, maybe you have an age range 55 up or who knows what. But
we've had plenty of exceptions to many things. We had where we had a retirement home, and this gentleman was 35 years old, and he wanted to go in. His family asked if we would let him in. And we thought about it, and we talked to the key seniors, and they said yes. I forgot to mention that he was a paraplegic and he had only a year to live.
Oh.
And he became such a mascot.
Right.
So there's a lot of exceptions to a lot of rules, and it's common sense.
Sure.
You use common sense and respect.
Absolutely. You have a similar project that's being developed somewhere else. Is that
In
right?
Bakersfield. It's a little bit different because it's an old school, Brigham Academy, and it's a beautiful piece of land and everything. So we will be able to put in 35 units in there. The difference is that it's an old school, and it costs probably as much, if not more, than building new.
Right.
But it's preserving heritage.
Right.
So that's a little bit different. But community-wise, we're putting in the library in there so that the seniors can congregate as
A
well.
library just for the residents
No,
or for
no,
everybody?
no, for everybody.
Cool.
Yeah. So there's like an entrance one way and an entrance the other, so that there is a security thing.
And then living accommodation,
Yeah.
35 units.
Yeah.
How easy was it for you to get the planning permission for that? And then the support to build it?
Night and day. On that side, everybody tried to help. So we had, I can't remember all the acronyms, but the St. Albans Committee, they've raised money. We got block grant money. We got support from the community. I mean, day and night. We're going to have a barbecue this summer. We have to do some historic preservation and everything. Sure. But it's what the community needs, and we're going to try to put some kind of a tower there so people can actually use cell phones in Bakersfield.
That's a big project.
It is.
Yeah. So how long before people will be actually able to live there?
Well, again, there's almost more bureaucracy there. We have engineers employed to look at different feasibilities and everything. I would say another 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd say that the first phase of this project could be done by next spring. We've built 40,000 square feet in 8 months in Canada. So again, if we have SIP panels made, boom, 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 it goes up. It's all the it's more the permitting that takes time. So the Act 250 and then the fire and safety. So you have to give full plans for that, and beyond that.
Yeah. Do you have any other projects in this country?
Yes. Well, we've got, and again, it's a show me. So after this one, we want to take the exact same plan and put it in St. Johnsbury.
Okay.
And again, if you can take the same plans more than once, you're
Right.
saving gobs of money as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a site yet
Yes.
in mind?
Yes, right across the street from the hospital.
Huh.
But it's an interesting site because it goes
Yeah.
like this.
Except the soonest that any of these appears to be ready is 2 years, and yet.
Well, again, depending if we get any kind of donations, we could start in the fall. And that means next spring we'd be ready.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, we have some bungalows at the far end. Again, you're looking at a month or two for that to get done at any given time. We don't want to start them until we have the first phase started, because I don't want any legitimacy to be compromised. You don't want to say, well, we're going to do this and it never gets built or
Right.
something. So this first phase is starting that wheel, and once that's done, this first part, it being done, will get almost guarantees the whole project to get
Right.
done here, the whole project to get done in St. Johnsbury. So ultimately, you'd be looking at least 280 housing units in the Northeast Kingdom. Now, how nice would that be?
It would be very nice.
Yeah.
And part of me says, yeah, and why aren't we just getting on with it? And the other part of me says, okay, what do we have to do so that it can happen?
Well,
Because
again,
obviously community has to be involved in some way.
the community has to be involved. we would like some people to volunteer some services. So we need to change our website. We had Lakemont Community, and now we have to change it into a HOSIV. So we need to look at that. Maybe get some grants from somewhere. The other thing is, I think the big companies, be it the Freds or the whatever companies, I would really like it if they could donate some money. We are a nonprofit, so we can give receipts. So it's a charity receipt. So
Do they know you exist?
probably not. And
Then
that's
it's really hard to donate if they don't know you.
yeah. Well, you'd think they could read my mind.
Yeah.
We're gonna we need to hire people to go knock on doors. That'll be, or have volunteers willing to do that. So far, I've been doing the lion's share of this. Our architect's been doing some work. You've been really supportive, which is really I'm grateful for. And we've had some people who've been very supportive, and some people who just don't care. And even if you're not a senior, a lot of times you have senior parents.
Right.
So-
Well, you certainly did have if you don't anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And just think about how you'd like to live. So in anything that we do, we also want suggestions. I mean, I even though I've built other retirement homes, things change. And whatever we can do to make it better at a profitable, at a reasonable rate,
Right.
we'd love to do that.
So if you were to look at this in sort of a hierarchy of needs, obviously money is the number one.
Money
But-
is the number one. Once that gets into place, everything else kind of falls in.
Yeah.
But we could use maybe some more board members. We'd like people to get involved. This is their project. It's not my project. It's everybody's project. So, whoever can get involved.
I was going to say the speed it's moving. Unfortunately, you're going to need it for yourself.
Well, yeah, well, it's not only that, like you look
Yeah.
at other places, nursing homes especially, where people haven't, the food has gone down or this has gone down. And, that's, if you have a lot of board members and you have a lot of people supervising and making sure that everything is okay,
Yeah.
you're a lot better off. So that's why it's not mine, it's everybody's.
Right.
I don't know what you'd bring in. Would you bring in some chickens in a place?
Well, I don't have chickens anymore, but I'd certainly bring cats.
Okay, but no beehives, right? Well,
I have a
beehives
beehive.
would be nice.
Little honey, why not?
Yeah, that's it. Should have a couple of maple trees. And I was thinking about some sheep. They could cut the grass.
I think that's a really good idea.
Scary, but true.
Yeah, I'm not sure Act 250 would go for that, though.
Really, but it would be a nice idea. It's more organic. It fertilizes at the same time.
And we're certainly a rural area, so, why not? But you do need to engage community, and people need to know that there is a possibility of housing in the future, community kind of housing. But if they don't know that, then it's really hard to get their attention.
I thought that they did because we have over 100 people on our wait list. Over 100 seniors on our wait list without even advertising.
Wow.
And from our own business, when people walk in, they see the plans and everything, because at our hearing center of Vermont, nice plug.
It was subtle.
Yeah, I thought so. And we do have plans there, and
Yeah.
we do show it to people who are interested. And we have people, I say, when is it going to get built? When is it going to get built? And right now with the housing market being, there's nothing available right now. If we could start building, we've had people say, "Oh, I'd like to sell my house because it right now is the peak perfect time to do
Right.
this." And because we don't
But I
have
have nowhere to go.
yeah, that's exactly it.
Right.
They've closed down assisted living places all around here because they got more money out of nursing homes than assisted living. So there's nothing. They'll put Alzheimer's people with people on dialysis, with people who just need a little care, and you don't want to mix that. You want to be able to not feel so threatened about what could happen, you know, I was going to say
You
100
also
years
want
from
to
now.
retain your autonomy
Yes,
as much
exactly.
as you possibly can. And we all recognize as we get older that some of that goes, but you know, it shouldn't just be taken.
No, in our retirement home in Ottawa, they were paying like this is years ago, $3,000 a month, but everything was done in housekeeping and everything. And that was a problem because you're not encouraging people to make up even their own bed.
Right.
So while you want to encourage that too, you know, look after yourself as much as you can. Have help whenever you need to.
Exactly.
My dad had to take an older lady out of a bathtub, and he was traumatized for months after that.
And so was she.
Well, yeah, you know, a slippery body and an older
It's
one.
hard.
Yes.
That is hard. I've done that.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Suction, you know, it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of funny stories. Yeah, you know, as you age, if there's one thing you need to do is develop
Laugh.
your sense of humor.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's basically
Yeah,
it.
I mean, most of us are not going to survive. Well, we're not going to survive anyway, but we're certainly not going to survive with any quality of life if we don't have a sense of humor.
And we survive so much longer. My oldest person I take care of is 106 years old.
Wow.
And she's got full faculty. She's swearing and cursing because she needs a walker. But, you know, I hate it when people say, oh, I'm 80, it's not worth it. And, you know, you can live, and especially in today's society, you can live another 10, 20, 30 years. But it does come down to quality of life. You know, if I'm going to be drooling in a wheelchair and not have a mind, I don't want to live.
I do not want it.
No, but I want to be able to interact with people if I want to in a
Right.
community setting, or be alone in my room if I want to.
And have my own room,
Yeah, definitely.
not somebody else's TV blaring.
Yeah, well, you know, and again, if you have SIP panels, it's a little quieter, but most
Yeah.
people can't hear anyway, so it's maybe less.
Yeah,
of
but
a-
you're supposed to fix that.
I know, but people won't always wear their hearing aids. I can take out my hearing aids and not hear anything. That's an advantage over people
Right.
who hear well. But yeah, it does come down to, you know, you need to put people in the right place. If you're autonomous, I can just imagine if if you didn't have a way to get out of the building without being supervised and having to ask permission, you'd go nuts.
I certainly would.
Yeah, and you know, if you didn't have activities you can go to, you know, again, you'd go nuts.
I would.
And but one of the things is, can you imagine at one point if all of a sudden, I can't think of a reason right now, but it wouldn't be safe for you to drive. So that takes away your autonomy.
Big time.
But if you knew that OC Transpo or you'd have other alternative means,
Right.
you would still have a certain amount of independence.
Exactly.
But if you live in the middle of nowhere and are dependent on everybody, you're really going to be suffering.
Well, you can live in the middle of Newport and still not have access to transport.
Yeah, that's
Re-
true. But
it's-
if you're in a larger community,
Right.
and you know, we can arrange things a lot easier. So,
But yes, I certainly would be kicking and screaming if I had to ask permission to go out.
wouldn't it be fun if we'd have even one of those, not an ATV, but one of those motorized vehicles, and we'd have a direct path right to the water, and you could go to the gazebo? I mean,
That would be pretty
that would
awesome.
be fun. You know, you have the bicycle path, you go there, it's fun. You know, in the springtime, you hear the birds, there are deer all over the place.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, there's a lot worse than living here. You know, there's if we wanted to fill up the place even more, you know, Vermont is the number one place, the safest place, they say, because we have lower crime than any other
We
place.
do.
We have less COVID than most places because we don't have the density.
Right.
And you know, I could just imagine during COVID, when it was really at its height, you live on the 38th floor of a building.
You're
you-
trapped.
You're trapped because in an elevator you could get COVID, the corridor you could get COVID. Here we just open our doors and we get out. So Vermont is just the greatest place, and the nice people. You know, the nicest people live here. You know, you got to get to know them and all this, but you know, sometimes I found that compared to cities, the women especially are a little gruff, but the nicest people. Did you ever see that? You know, where they're.
Yeah, I don't consider people gruff.
Brian is scared of someone who was almost hide under the table for one of them, you know. So, but she's the nicest person and has a rough demeanor, but she also did nursing, and was just totally in a funk when that person passed away. So,
Right.
yeah, I love the people here. As
Yeah,
you, we
obviously
travel.
we chose to come here.
Yes,
I mean,
that was.
both of us are flatlanders.
Yep.
Both of us are foreign flatlanders,
Yep.
which is even worse.
Yes. I think we have the best of all worlds here.
Right.
And you know, shopping, I don't need to go to, and if I did want to go, well, I don't want to go shopping, but Amazon, thank God for any of these places, or, and we don't need anything. We're older. I mean, what do we need?
Well, need isn't always the issue. It's what do I want?
Yes, there is that. But, you know, in our place, we'd also have a real recreation person, because a lot of people say, oh, we like to play with seniors. Well, you know, you have to divide it to all the senses. You know, the cognitive, the social, the physical. We had a physical therapist that would prove a point and gathered all these seniors around and did a half hour of physical therapy, and they assessed them before and they assessed them after, night and day. They were
Yeah.
able to bend something that they couldn't.
It makes such a difference to quality of life.
Oh, that's why, you know, like I'm almost talking myself to wanting to be in there, but
Right. My
still a
mother
little
lived
young.
in a facility in another country, in the north of Scotland, actually. And a lot of their social events, and the ones where they were physically moving around, ended with sort of either coffee and cake, or in their case, a glass of scotch, because, you know, they were in Scotland. And,
Yep.
Or wine, and it was wine and cheese. And that was the norm. And it's such a different atmosphere from here are your pills, go take them.
Oh, definitely. It's funny you mentioned Scotland, because my dad did a bit of research on this, and Guinness beer. There was a nursing home somewhere, and they would give Guinness beer to their inmates, so to
Yes.
speak, because it made them sleep better.
Absolutely.
What a way to go, right?
It's far better than taking medication.
Yeah,
I'm an RN and a midwife, and what we used to do was give lactating women Guinness or an equivalent
Oh,
stout,
really?
because
Malt?
it stimulates lactation, and it relaxes both mother and child. So we're so moralistic about alcohol here that
we're like that about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Some things are good, some things aren't.
Right.
But yeah, there's common sense, and it's funny that you mentioned that kind of activity, because we would have at 4:00, we'd have happy hour at least 2 or 3 times a week.
that's great.
And you know, some people cannot take any alcohol, but
So
they'd be
don't
happy,
have it.
and
Have
there was,
something else. And
yeah, and there'd be
it-
entertainment.
happy hour is happy hour.
Yeah, that's it. There would be a lot of times musicians or something that would
Right.
play a little something, and we'd have once or twice or 3 times, I can't remember, a month, zoo therapy. So the people who didn't own animals, the local dog animal
Rescue.
pound place
Yeah.
would bring their favorite pets, and that was so popular for a lot of
Sure.
people. So you know, you do a lot of these things, and we've always had this 6-foot long aquarium in our retirement homes, and it would be part of the wall adjoining the library and one of the common
Right.
areas, and that was always it made it was really great. The only times I didn't like it was on Saturdays, because grandchildren would come to visit, and we'd have to clean the glass of the aquarium about 3 or 4 times a
Sticky
day.
fingers.
Yes, that it was just
So you're
funny.
planning an aquarium for this place?
If we can, because a 6-foot aquarium is labor intensive, and
Right.
we had someone come in to do the work, but I don't know, you know, we're in Newport. Well, we could take fish from the lake, and then they could
Yeah,
fish them
right.
out, and you know, maybe.
But the idea, and somebody may be willing to do that as a project.
Yeah, something like that. Because one of the things that I've noticed, I've been to different nursing homes, and at this point, we don't have any idea for nursing homes, but they will have the local cat, have a cat mascot or a dog, and you can't really do that because at one of the nursing homes, they had 2 dogs, and they'd run around, and it would just discombobulate people. And some people have allergies, so you've got to be respectful about that.
Right.
You know, it's you can have them in your rooms or certain places, but you can't have them everywhere.
We are about out of time.
Oh, okay.
Goes fast.
Yep, it does.
How can people contact you if they'd like more information?
802-673-2299. 802-673-2299. Or you can even stop in at the Hearing Center of Vermont. I'm there most mornings except Mondays, and I can show you whatever I need to show you as well. And again, if you have any volunteers who would like to call people up to donate, we're going to be setting up also a GoFundMe page, and that'll be put on a new website when we get the new website done. And if they need more information, they could contact you.
They could. They can contact the studio here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in some ways it must feel overwhelming to people, like where do you even begin, including for you. But if there's a need and a public recognition of that need, then that might make a few more doors open.
We've got on our board, we've got the head of Council on Aging. We've got all kinds of good qualified people.
That's great.
So, and I hate to be like this, but we want this to happen. We do need donations.
Okay.
So please, 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 if you can't, try to ask yourself who can, and ask them. And it's tax deductible. Remember, it's tax deductible. So anybody who wants to do that for a good cause, it's for the community, and you know, we might all end up there.
That's right. And it's also time and an opportunity for seniors, us, to get loud.
Well, I'm loud, so it's not me.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah.
Yes, you know, contact your city. You can contact your council members. Tell them that you want it to happen. Contact the senators, the representatives, whoever you
Just
feel.
speak up.
Yes.
Speak up. Thank you for coming. And as this project advances, come back and tell us where it's going.
More than happy to. I could bring plans next time.
Okay, that'll work.